is pathetic. And as for this picture of Hersey supposedly throwing up gang signs, if that were true, Rihanna, Fergie and former President George W. Bush are all Tren de Aragua too. But when confronted on this in court, the government's been completely unrepentant. Early on, they violated a judge's orders to turn around planes carrying deportees to El Salvador, and even after the Supreme Court explicitly directed they facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody there, they've chosen to dick around about the exact meaning of the word facilitate. As for Trump, when he was pressed on whether the people he sent to El Salvador deserved any sort of due process, he said this.
You know, we have thousands of people that are ready to go out, and you can't have a trial for all of these people. And a judge can't say, no, you have to have a trial. The trial's going to take 2 years. And no, we're going to have a very dangerous country if we're not allowed to do what we're entitled to do.
But that's not how anything works. You can't just opt out of due process because it's inconvenient. It's why court orders don't tend to end with, if not, no worries, you do you. And the thing is, this could all get worse, because while thankfully the courts have tried to curb Trump's use of these two acts, they've also seemed to sign off on a new diabolical strategy the administration's been using, involving a decades-old legal provision called registration of aliens. It allows the administration to require undocumented people register with the government and carry proof of that registration. And it is clearly a trap, because if you register and give the government all your information, you become an easy target. But if you don't, or are caught not carrying proof, you can be charged with a federal misdemeanor, allowing them to label you a criminal and putting you at risk of deportation. And this is already happening. People have been charged in Texas and Arizona using this mechanism. Basically, they can't find enough criminals to deport, so they found a way to turn more people into criminals so that they suddenly can. It's a desperate but depressingly effective move. And that's not even getting into the other plans that they've teased, from Marco Rubio saying we are actively searching for other countries to take people, to the administration floating the idea of labelling suspected gang members as enemy combatants. They've also tried to stop anyone who stands in their way. Just last week, they arrested a judge in Wisconsin for supposedly helping an immigrant evade ICE. And on Thursday, ICE made a big production out of serving a search warrant as part of an investigation into these flyers that were posted months ago with information about ICE agents on them. They even released dramatic footage of them rolling up to the house of their target's parents, who were understandably pretty surprised. Yeah, I'm afraid this is real life, though. 17 vehicles with armed agents did a zero dark 30 on a lovable middle-aged couple looking for a guy who'd put up flyers warning about ICE overreach. Fun fact, guess who was on site for that raid? The ICE acting director who said the Amazon Prime thing. Guess who wasn't there? The guy they were looking for, as he apparently moved to New York last month. A mistake, for the record, that Amazon would not make. And while that's almost laughably absurd, it's also obviously scary and extremely dangerous. And it kind of gets to the heart of all of this, which is Trump loudly selling his supporters the lie that he'll protect them from existential threats, only to further government overreach and state violence, even while deporting makeup artists, unlucky soccer fans, and 4-year-olds with cancer. So what can we do? Well, some of this depends on elected leaders, and to their credit, a number of prominent Democrats have gone to El Salvador to call attention to this, which is definitely preferable to the approach that others have taken, with some anonymous House Democrats quoted as saying, should it be the big issue for Democrats? Probably not. And complaining, rather than talking about the tariff policy and the economy, we're going to go take the bait for one hairdresser, which is absolutely enraging, especially as many voters do seem to get the clear problem with deporting people without due process to a prison for life, even in red states. Here's Chuck Grassley being confronted at a town hall in Iowa. Exactly. That man, who definitely owes a real $1,200 ticket, is right on the nose there. The president is clearly not following the law as he is required to. And look, if your elected officials aren't holding town halls, you can still tell them you care about this issue. Call them and say if they believe in due process, they should work to repeal the Alien Enemies Act and amend the part of Section 237 of the INA that lets Marco Rubio decide whose free speech is a threat. But in the meantime, we're going to need to help immigrants defend themselves. Remember, those in the immigration court are not guaranteed a lawyer. And if they don't have one, their chances are basically zero. So if you can, it is worth supporting non-profits like these that provide legal services for immigrants or local ones in your community. And this is an issue where I do think there is a practical value to public protest, because this is going to be in the courts. And those inside them need to be made aware of public opinion on this, because it can make a difference. Former Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist once wrote that no honourable judge would ever cast his vote because he thought the majority of the public wanted him to vote that way, but that in certain cases, judges are undeniably influenced by the great tides of public opinion. And I would argue the moment we're in right now isn't just worthy of a great tide, it is worthy of a fucking tsunami. Because this is an absolute outrage. And it is one where it is important to remind our elected leaders that all people are worthy of safety, protection, and due process. Because that is indisputably, in the words of this country's single weirdest carpet-sponsored local news segment, a fucking fact. And now, this.
Local news celebrates the dumbest of holidays.
National Shrimp Scampi Day. Very niche. I love shrimp scampi.
I love a good shrimp dish. I feel like with pasta is my favorite. I know that's really basic. Just like a fettuccine with shrimp.
That's not basic at all. It is National Shrimp Scampi Day.
Shrimp Scampi Day. Oh, that's good stuff.
Nice. Shrimp Scampi Day. I'm just stuck on that.
Man, hopefully somebody's doing some deals around town. I feel like we'd get pretty lucky if we found that.
So dig in and don't scrimp on the shrimp. But you know, I bet if shrimp could have TVs, they would love to watch Prawn Stars.
Well, that's a good
Who
one.
wrote the script?
Shrimp Scampi.
You can have mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're not eating the shrimp scampi? Why?
I'm not into seafood that much.
Oh, Carl.
Got some shrimp
Wait,
at
really?
home that's begging to be scampied.
Yep. Scampi it up.
I'll scampi it up tonight, maybe.
There you go.
1992 on this date, the riots in L.A. began following the acquittal of police officers charged with excessive force in the beating of Rodney King.
Moving on. Finally tonight, a quick word about baseball, America's official national pastime, not to be confused with its unofficial national pastime, clicking Remind Me Later on software updates. Specifically, we're going to talk about minor league baseball, the network of teams that functions as a farm system for players. There are currently 120 full-season minor league teams, each affiliated with a major league one. And if you have one in your town, you may be familiar with them thanks to eye-catching promotions like this one last year from the Lake County Captains in Ohio.
We thought, why don't we rip out 2 sections and put in toilets and work with Roto-Rooter, and that's what we did.
Can I be so bold as to ask why you went with the toilet seats?
Because that's amazing.
Yeah?
Hilarious.
I was trying to see if we could use them.
I love all of that, from the fact that he's wearing a T-shirt that says bunt stuff to the toilets themselves, which look less like stadium seating and more like a production number from an all-toilet version of a chorus line. And while they might not be functional, that guy there seems 2 White Claws away from saying, fuck it, I'm taking a dump here anyway. Minor league baseball teams are really good at publicity. They kind of have to be, as while their player contracts are handled by major league teams, they're responsible for many other operating costs, which can be significant. So they go out of their way to try and grab people's attention, starting with eye-catching team names like the Hub City Spartan Burgers, or the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, or the Modesto Nuts. Those are just the ones named after food. There's also the Richmond Flying Squirrels, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, and the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. And incidentally, Rumble Pony sounds less like the name of a baseball team and more like Australian slang for a bike. G'day, mate, just peddling the heck out of the old Rumble Pony right now. I'm bloody naked. The names of minor league teams have actually gotten even more creative in recent years as they've discovered that a flashy reboot can really boost ticket sales. Here's a marketing exec with one team in Alabama explaining the gamble that they took on a team name that really paid off. Of course you did! I cannot believe that ownership group thought that idea for a single second, because if you told me my idea for making people buy things is to put a raccoon in a trash can rocket ship, my first, second and third reaction would be, good idea, you're about to be a billionaire, because you can't not buy merch like that once you know it exists. Case in point, go Trash Pandas, TPs for life. Beyond rebrandings, teams also throw theme nights that can be both weird and incredible. The now-defunct Lowell Spinners, for instance, once held a bubble wrap night where nearly 3,700 fans popped bubble wrap at the same time. Do you want to hear what it sounded like? Of course you do.
Okay, ready, set, go! Wow!
Perfect idea, flawless execution. And if you're thinking, wasn't that quite a lot to go through to produce a sound best described as sizzling for heater plates? Hey, shut the fuck up! Let things be fun! But that is not all. One night, the El Paso Chihuahuas played a whole game in this absolutely unhinged jersey that led their own general manager to say, I'll never forget the first time I saw it. It's so terrible, it's perfect. Which, hard agree, and just spare a thought for the opposing team, because how could they focus on the game when everywhere they turn, they see a massive chest chihuahua staring directly into their soul? Then there was the incredible specificity of Helen McGuckin Night. What's Helen McGuckin Night? I'm so glad you asked. In 2018, the Charleston River Dogs received a Google review from a random woman named Helen McGuckin that said, just drove by, 2 out of 5 stars. In response, they devoted an entire night to trying to impress her and change her review. They got hold of her and she agreed to come, but then apparently she backed out at the last minute. But rather than abandon the idea, they asked their office manager to play the role of Helen McGuckin. And even though she was nervous, they encouraged her by telling her to pretend it's Administrative Professionals Appreciation Day. Just be yourself and have fun, but if people say, hey, Helen, feel free to wave at them. Here she is as Helen McGuckin. And as far as I'm concerned, she really nailed that role. To be honest, for that team's relentless ingenuity, I give them, unlike Helen, 5 fucking stars. Teams will also sometimes just change their name for a night or for a handful of games. The New Hampshire Fisher Cats, for instance, are taking a turn this year as the Space Potatoes. And the Amarillo Sod Poodles briefly changed their name each year to the Amarillo Calf Fries, named after the battered bull testicles they actually sell at those games. And in 2018, the Syracuse Chiefs, now the Syracuse Mets, played one game as the Syracuse Devices, specifically the Brannock device. And if you think you don't know what a Brannock device is, you are wrong, because it is this foot measuring thing. It was invented in Syracuse, and they wanted to pay tributes to it, which they did in multiple ways, from designing this mascot to introducing members of the opposing team on the big screen by putting their face inside a foot. Right foot if they're right-handed, left foot if they're left-handed. But wait, because it gets one step better. My absolute favourite rebrand concerns the Eugene, Oregon Emeralds. They managed to triple merchandise sales to nearly $1 million in a single season by occasionally playing as the Exploding Whales, which is already a good name. But gets even better when you learn it's a nod to a notorious 1970s blunder when a dead, smelly 8-ton whale washed ashore in Oregon, and the State Highway Agency thought it'd be a fine idea to use explosives to blast the carcass to smithereens and let seagulls take care of the remains. This is the whale in question, and if you've never seen the footage of what happened next, I'll let the local news from back then fill you in.
Our camera stopped rolling immediately after the blast. The humor of the entire situation suddenly gave way to a run for survival as huge chunks of whale blubber fell everywhere. The dunes were rapidly evacuated as spectators escaped both the falling debris and the overwhelming smell. Fortunately, no human was hit as badly as the car. However, everyone on the scene was covered with small particles of dead whale.
Why would you not name a minor league baseball team after a historic moment like that? And while all these rebrandings have been perfect, I will say there have been some recent missteps. For instance, this year, the Chesapeake Bay Sox in Maryland revealed an alternative identity as the Oyster Catchers, which included this logo. Now, fans... I know. Fans quickly pointed out that this part didn't only look like an oyster in a baseball glove. So the image was pulled from the team's branding, with a spokesperson saying, it's hard to believe, but after reviewing the logo both internally and externally, none of us saw what the internet saw. But their fans protested the removal with Instagram comments like, give us the clam glove on a fitted new era or we riot, and no merch with the mitteris, come on! So they announced plans to bring the oyster image back for a limited run of merch, with a share of proceeds going to a charity that fights cervical cancer, which really feels like everyone involved fully understood the assignment. And that is not the only marketing mistake that happened. Last year, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes tried to pay tribute to the look of a mariachi jacket by rebranding as the Chiquetas, only to run into a small problem.
When the team launched the rebrand in March, General Manager Grant Riddle says they didn't realize that the Spanish word for jackets also has another meaning, slang for masturbation. They immediately removed the name from social media for a few hours, wondering how they missed it.
We developed this brand, we vetted it, we took it to our local Latino Hispanic communities and said, what do you think? Our families and the Major League Baseball, even the mariachi community, everybody was like, this is awesome. Like, this is incredible.
Yeah, I bet they said that. Because I, too, would be saying, this is incredible, if I knew a professional baseball team was about to inadvertently launch a line of jack-off merch. Look, I love all of this, even the mistakes. My only real criticism is that some minor league teams just aren't really pulling their weight. Some are just boringly named after their major league affiliate, like the Worcester Red Sox and the Iowa Cubs. Others are just first-thought choices, like the Buffalo Bisons and the St. Paul Saints, which is pretty disappointing. Because in not embracing the glorious eccentricity of the magnificent league that they belong to, they're kind of leaving money on the table. And that is where we come in. Because I have a very special offer. We are willing to use all of our resources and stupidity to give one minor league baseball team a total rebrand. We will give you a new team name, a new mascot. We will even throw you a theme night. It will be personalised and it will be bespoke. I promise. We will put just as much time, energy and research into this as we do into exposing the dark underbelly of America's criminal justice system. Arguably more. And we will do this in the spirit of your team, city and the league to which you belong. You just need to agree to some very simple terms. The main one being, you can't ask us any questions, give us any notes, and you have to do what we come up with. And I know that might feel a bit risky, but don't worry, because we won't saddle you with oyster genitals or make you wear a floating dog face, and we will not make your new name explicitly about masturbation. But we do really, really want to do this, so please come with me.